Welcome to The Connector, where we connect North Carolina to ideas and North Carolinians to each other. This podcast series is from the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. And now to the conversation.
Hello and welcome to The Connector. I'm your host, Sarah Hall, Director of the Institute for Emerging Issues at NC State University. Emerging Issues Forum topics change every year, and they tend to have a consistent theme: how to create the workforce of tomorrow to address the issue we are tackling on. So over the years, we have been thrilled to see the evolution of programs that are preparing the next generation of workers with the skills they need to be successful once they enter the labor force. In 2023, SparkNC was established to take workforce development and job training in the tech industry to the next level. The nonprofit empowers students to identify their desired careers and tailor their educational experience to those fields, completely turning the traditional high school classroom experience on its head while giving students a competitive edge as they enter the workforce. SparkNC operates in 17 school districts across North Carolina, creating a homegrown talent pipeline for high-wage careers. Now, a key partner in this effort is District C, a nonprofit that is reimagining the internship experience for high school students. In partnership with SparkNC, District C is bringing the teamship model to schools across the state, giving students more opportunity to connect with business leaders, gain critical skills in team-based problem solving, while also receiving coaching from a trained and certified educator. SparkNC and District C recently held their inaugural SparkNC Exchange at UNC Wilmington, where more than 130 high school students gathered to explore interests in tech and build skills. I'm excited to welcome SparkNC President Dr. Lynn Moody and District C Chief Executive Officer Dan Gonzalez on the podcast today to talk about their work, the impact of their partnership, and some exciting news that came out of the Spark Exchange last month. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here.
So good to be here.
Yeah. So Dr. Moody, let's start with you. First of all, it's so nice to connect again, and I've enjoyed following your work or passion projects over the years. I gave a brief description of SparkNC in my intro, but I know our listeners would love to hear more. So tell us about SparkNC and the story behind your innovative job training model.
Okay, would love to share more. There seem to be two big goals for Spark from our beginning and our creation. We started with this economic impact to North Carolina, like where were the jobs of the future? How were we going to be prepared for those? And quite honestly, the day we wrote the proposal to the General Assembly for Spark was the day that Apple announced they were going to open a headquarters in Raleigh. And there was a great deal of social media saying none of those jobs will really go to North Carolinians. People from California will move here and take all the high wage jobs at Apple. And how would we prepare for that? So part of it was an economic driver in North Carolina. What did we do to be sure that we had this really rich, diverse talent pipeline? So our students were walking through those doors at Apple for the highest wage jobs and many of the other tech jobs across North Carolina that are vacant, that they're looking to fill with great talent. So that was one. The second one was just to do high school differently. How do we re-engage students in a way that to create passion? And how could we possibly introduce ways to help students who might not have ever dreamed, thought, or even heard of those high-tech jobs, exploring how they would enter those. When we first began, the first 100 students that gave us feedback into our ideas around it all said, oh, we thought those jobs were only for the valedictorian of the class. Mm-hmm. So how do we change that mindset? So both of those goals were a big part of our creation.
Yes, I love it. So you all describe yourselves as a new way to do school. So walk us through the process of approaching a school system and then approaching them, presenting them with this model.
Oh. Well, it does take a lot of commitment and bravery from school districts to really do things differently. As you may know, that the high tech, the high accountability model towards standardized testing is a lot of the way that school districts are evaluated and measured for their success. So therefore, that's a big driver in how schools operate. And this model really turns everything on its head. So they have to have a really trusting partnership. And I would say almost all of our school districts, or all the school districts that we work with, are saying they really want to do school differently, but what they have to account to is makes it difficult for them to do some of the things that they'd like to do. So inside of Spark, in this small pilot, because there's like one Spark lab in each of these school districts, where they can test this out to see what if it was really learner-centered. What if it was all about the individual learner and how we help them get to the next level? So how could we use student voice? How would students have choice? In other words, they wouldn't come in to just, here's your curriculum, here's your syllabus for this semester, and this is the pace in which everybody will go. And at the end, you will have a standardized test to measure whether you obtain knowledge. So it is completely different. We have learning units that students have lots of choice in. They have voice in helping us create those learning units, which is very unusual. And then they can do it at their own pace. And they stack these learning units together if they want to get a high school credit, and they can now get high school credit in computer science by stacking 6 of these learning units together. Some of our students don't even take it for credit. So that's a whole novel idea, that students would just come into a course to do learning just for fun. And then second of all, everything's industry relevant. Like, it is not throwaway work for students. We don't give them a pretend problem. These are real problems. And Dan is going to talk about that further, I'm sure. And then they're competency based. How do we help students look at their work, evaluate their own work, and talk about whether they actually built a competency in an area and how they did that work? So that's a lot about how the curriculum looks very different.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of upfront, very collaborative work with the educators and the students. So want to learn more about that. Would love to hear more about what some of the successes have looked like, and then as a result, responses from those districts.
Well, one piece of data that we have from last spring that is most powerful to me is that 78% of our students reported that they had a positive change in their interest in high-tech careers once they experienced Spark at any level. That is tremendous. So that was the dream going in, is that students would now see themselves in these pathways and find a belonging in things like cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and computer systems engineering and data analytics. But there are so many individual stories. For one, we are now in 25 school districts, not 17. So growth has been substantial. We've served over 3,000 students, and there'll be a lot more this year. So we're really proud of the scale across North Carolina and the interest in the model. And then I think our students, they all have different stories, but I can tell you stories about students who are now tech infused, who have no interest in going into one of those tech fields, but they took courses. For example, a nursing student in New Hanover School who wanted to become a nurse, but she took cybersecurity units so that her college application would look different. So she did projects around cybersecurity and nursing. So being tech infused is a great way that our students have used our courses to accelerate their pathways. In Mount Airy, a young man who came in thinking that welding was the only pathway for him is now on a full scholarship at Wesleyan College, North Carolina Wesleyan College, for computer systems engineering. So really excited to see how either in tech infused or in other areas, we've had students where when we do demo days or community days, that our students are working part-time in the community to help solve real-world problems. So there's lots of individual stories But the big story is that almost 80% of our students are now seeing themselves in those roles.
And that's wonderful. And I think about too, just women in STEM as an example. And so just exposing folks, like you said, that maybe didn't see themselves as tech infused or in the tech industry, opening up this whole new way of thinking about what their potential is. Even if you're a nurse, having that skill set, right? Could still be in handy. And who knows, maybe they'll end up on one of those, as we all get put on some of those task force sort of roles, at work, because you've got this level of information and expertise.
And it's pretty exciting, Sarah, to see who those students are in our districts. We're finding also that our data says that the students that are coming into our Spark labs are a pretty good mirror of the school district. So the number of gifted students, the number of students with special needs. We serve a lot of students with special needs who are finding their way in these tech careers and bringing meaningful work.
It's so wonderful to hear. So let me ask you this. So you've partnered with a lot of big names in the tech industry in a very short amount of time. I think that's a lot to do with your leadership. So it's safe to assume that you are all doing really impactful work. What has been the feedback, not only from your business partners, but then also that relationship with the school districts where you're working?
Well, obviously, we could not make it real world relevant work if it weren't for our business partners. So I'll just tell you some of the things that have been very helpful. For example, Apple did a big app challenge last year for our students, and to hear our students tell stories about what it meant to actually go to Apple and have worldwide leaders certify and acknowledge their work and give them feedback on the apps that they were developing, and students from every background. It was really rewarding to hear them talk about how they got feedback from business partners. I personally watched a student who all the lights came on at SAS when he heard Issa, a data scientist, talk about what is data analytics. And the first time that it really resonated with him about what data analytics really is and how excited he got about the future of that, thinking that would not be anything he would ever consider, and leaving there just like on fire. So it's our business partners. It's Epic, who is taking and I'll thank Steve Isaacs for just this intense partnership of looking at when our students are doing game design and how they might can use it, and opportunities for that. And people like Live Oak Bank, who next year is going to open 3 new Spark labs because they believe in the model. So it's been time, resources, energy, and relevant real world experiences. So we're just really grateful for all of our business partners.
So I love that. And I was thinking, what student wouldn't be so excited to come back and tell all their friends that they've just done some work with Apple? What a dream. Well, thanks so much for that, Dan. And let's turn it over to you. I've heard a lot about District C from Dr. Moody and others, and I'll chime in that I don't really remember having an internship opportunity in high school. In fact, when I think about an internship, I think about college and being assigned sort of grunt work tasks that were very independent. So let's start with, what is a teamship and what makes it different?
Yeah, so you can think of teamship as kind of a reimagined team-based internship where teams of students solve real problems for real businesses in the community. And all the while they're getting expert coaching from an educator who's been trained and certified by us. And I think there are 3 things that make it different from a more traditional internship. The first is equitable access. So I remember when I was a young person, I thought I wanted to be an engineer. And so I went to my dad one spring and I said, "Hey, I think I should probably have an internship, right? If I want to be an engineer." And he said, "Yeah, great." He made one phone call to a friend of his who got me an internship at an engineering firm. And I didn't have to interview. I didn't have to send in a resume. I just had it. And I think this is pretty typical, right? Students with social capital and family connections tend to get these kinds of opportunities. But what about the rest of the students that don't that don't have that kind of access. Teamship is designed to be implemented for students at school during the school day, so that you don't have to worry about whether you've got the connections that you need to get these kinds of opportunities, or maybe some students have to take care of grandparents after school or need to work a minimum wage job. We're trying to bring the experience to students where they are to provide more equitable access. The second thing is a focus on modern work. So teamship is about developing the team-based problem-solving skills you need for modern work. And in this age where AI is upending the labor market, that's going to be ever more crucial. And then the last thing I would say is expert coaching. I think in so many internships, so many interns are managed by middle managers who don't have a ton of time. They've got a bunch of projects. Teamship is about getting proactive expert coaching from a certified educator. And we found that this is what helps students develop the team-based problem-solving skills that they need.
Yeah. So these are great. I love learning more, and I love the term. And I actually love how your website talks about use a basketball analogy, and how we're doing a really great job of preparing students, 2-point players, for what has now become a 3-point economy. Yeah. And so just love that analogy and framing for how we think about the future and the skills needed for the future. So can you tell us more about District C and how you got connected with SparkNC and what that partnership has looked like?
Yeah. So Lynn, I hope you don't mind me saying, I have been a Lynn Moody fan since the day that we first met and had a conversation when she was leading the renewal effort at Rowan Salisbury schools. And we were talking about teamship. And I knew from that first conversation that Lynn was a true leader's leader in this education space, because she had no sacred cows. If you know Lynn, I imagine many of you listening to this probably do, you know that Lynn thinks outside the box. She pushes hard. She reimagines. She takes big steps and big swings. And so we connected then. And then when she and Joe Obleidinger started thinking about SparkNC, I got to know Joe and developed the same level of respect for him and the way that he thinks about this work. And so we just had this ongoing conversation for a couple of years. One of the things that I have appreciated about Lynn and Joe's vision for SparkNC from the start is that, and you heard Lynn talk a little bit about this a couple of minutes ago, is that for them, it has always been about more than just technical skills and exposure to careers in tech. They recognize from the beginning that if we're going to prepare students for this new economy, that we have to be thinking also about durable skills. And that's where teamship came in and where our partnership started, is, finding that balance between helping students develop the technical competencies they need and also the durable skills that are so important in this kind of work.
So you all recently joined forces for the inaugural SparkNC Exchange at UNC Wilmington. Can you tell us more about that event and who was there and your goals for this 3-day experience?
Yeah, I may let Lynn talk about that.
Well, it was phenomenal. And first of all, thank you, Dan, for your comments. It has been a really true partnership with District C. We couldn't do what we do in being learner-centered without District C being at the hub of a lot of our work. And we have some students in Spark, when I said they do choice, that just choose to do teamships. They don't even go to the learning platform. They just do teamships. And we think that's great too. There's all kinds of ways for students to experience things. So we're really grateful for that. The exchange was a way to give students, again, I'm going to go back to what Dan was saying about what about students who don't have the social capital in the network? How could we create a really deep experience that was really life defining? That it was a conference type event for 3 days, that when they went home, they would be connected in ways they have not been connected. So they would be connected to other students across the state of North Carolina. They would be connected to they would be connected to professors in computer science at UNC Wilmington at the college level, that they would be connected to businesses, which we had about, I think there was over 40 before it was over with, that they were actually connected with while they were there, and the teamship part. at a formal dinner, that they would be connected to each other in a different way. So that was the goal. And I felt it was exciting to watch. It was a great lineup of opportunities for those students and a great investment into them. We had about 130 students, and I think Dan would attest to, we sat back and said, we watched students grow up in front of us, like take risks, take challenges. We had one podcast section, speaking of podcasts, on stage in front of 150 people. And we had students volunteering to come on stage that were true introverts, that their Spark Lab leaders were actually crying to say, I would have never guessed they would have raised their hand. They would have been the last one I would have picked to say they would have participated in that way. So we watched students just grow right in front of us and take great risks. Speaking of another data point, 93% of our students said when they left there, they felt much more empowered to pursue a tech career. So again, great success for a 3-day event.
Yeah, one thing I would just add, I have appreciated kind of learning from and observing how one of the big pillars of the Spark work is this opportunity to create community among students and business partners. And you can see it if you've spent any time in a Spark lab or at one of these summer events that Spark puts on. There is a true sense of community in the room. And I think coming out of COVID, thinking about all that's going on in the world, like we need each other more than ever. And I think students need each other more than ever. And I think SparkNC does a great job of creating opportunities to be in community with each other.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, we think about students and their need to feel not so isolated. I mean, we think of students as being all together in school, but I think data suggests that there's this very isolating experience that they're also going through. And so these opportunities, that you're creating, I think is just great. Not just to help connect, the future tech infused and tech based workforce, but also all of that sort of follow on that comes with that. The pro-social sort of activities that come along with that. So I did hear that maybe there was a big announcement on that second day that's really going to help scale reach. So do you want to share with the audience what that announcement was?
Yeah, Dan, I'll yield to you. I'll let you.
Yeah. So we had the great pleasure of getting some support from American Student Assistance, an organization based in Boston who is very keen on thinking about ways to help students develop the career preparation they need for their futures. And they've been gracious enough to grant $1 million to SparkNC to support our work together to bring more teamship students to more students across the state, which is huge. I mean, it basically allows us to continue this work for 2 more years. We can't thank Kevin Fudge and team at ASA anymore. I mean, they are fantastic supporters and leaders in this work. They convene thought leaders from across the country. So it's about more than just the financial support. They're really putting their money and their time where their mouth is, and helping organizations like ours have more impact on more students. Lynn, is there anything else you would add?
Yeah, I would just say very, very grateful for their support. They put on a beautiful dinner that evening that a lot of our students have never experienced before, and made them feel special. And that's a memory that, more than the money, as Dan said, we're really grateful for all the convening that they do for us and helping us think as we can try to continue to think outside the box and the work we're doing. So it was a tremendous evening. And I would like to add on to that too, Sarah. Major announcement, major support, but we also have some other supporters that are joining in our work that's really helping us make movement across the state of North Carolina. And of course, we want to continue to thank the General Assembly for their support, because that's how we got started to start with. And then, so that's important to us. But Leon Levine has also been a tremendous support over the next 3 years. They are helping us scale to new school districts. Dogwood Trust help us scale to Haywood County. So we'll be opening a new lab there. Live Oak Bank, 3 new labs in New Hanover County. So it has really been from a lot of partners who have aligned with us to help us do this work. So we're real grateful.
So if I am a superintendent, or I am a school leader in a district who does not currently have a SparkNC lab, what do they need to do? Who do they need to reach out to learn more and talk about getting a lab in their school?
Yeah, they can just reach out to me directly if they wish. It's Lynn at SparkNC.org. They can go to our website. They can go to District C's website and reach out to Dan. Any of us who can, we work collaboratively with our partners in our districts. And so if they're interested in a Spark Lab and doing some of this work, then we will be announcing 4 new school districts later this fall. So that'll put us up to 29 school districts. And again, we're expanding inside of school districts as well, the number of labs that we have. So just reach out to us and we'll help figure it out. If we don't have a grant funding to help you get started, we'll help you find some local business partners that'll start to see the work so that we can get a Spark Lab in your area soon.
Now, is the goal to get to all 100 counties? Is that kind of what that pipe dream in the future? Or
yeah, there's 115 school districts in North Carolina. We would love to have a lab in every school district. We would actually love to have a lab at every high school in North Carolina. I think that would be the big dream. Maybe that's a 10-year goal. So
I love it. Well, before we close, Dan, is there anything else you want to add to the conversation?
Just thanks to you, Sarah, for making time and space for this conversation. I think a lot of what I've learned over the last 8+ years of doing this work is that it's really hard to do this work in isolation. You need a lot of partners and advocates and ambassadors, and just appreciate you lifting this work up and celebrating it and giving us a chance to talk about it.
Great. Thank you. And Lynn, anything for you?
Yeah, I think I'd be amiss if we ended this conversation without me saying go Wolfpack. I'm a diehard Wolfpack fan. And we started our work there at NC State, was our first convening. And thanks to you, Sarah, and the Institute for spurring us on and pushing us further, because that started at the very beginning there at the Hill Library. So thank you so much.
Well, so glad to have you both on. So once again, I want to thank our guests, District C Chief Executive Officer Dan Gonzalez and SparkNC President Dr. Lynn Moody. I have thoroughly enjoyed learning more about SparkNC and District C. And until next time, let's all stay connected.
This has been a presentation from the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. To learn more, please visit us at emergingissues.org.